This is the Digital Prepper, and today we are live. We're going to be talking about a particular topic that we've been, kind of taking a look at, um, you know, the past few months, and we have prepping with Sarge with us. He's, a big advocate of mental health, and he's also a part of the industry as well. So we're going to go ahead and get his opinion about this particular topic. Um, for anyone who is kind of new to my channel, what I do is I look at different cybersecurity threats and how we can prepare ourselves against those threats, as well as doing other things like product reviews and other stuff like that. Sarge, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good, brother. It's always good to collaborate with you. I'm doing good. Glad to be here.
Go ahead and tell the audience about yourself for
So,
people who don't know.
yeah. So for anybody, I think most of your audience knows who I am. But if they don't, or if they're new, I am a YouTuber as well as in my primary job is I'm a therapist. I've been in the field of mental health therapy for over 25 years. We're definitely going to be talking about some of that stuff tonight and healthcare in general. Um, the as my YouTube stuff I have two channels actually. I have my prepping channel, which is all about emergency preparedness and a little bit of wilderness survival in there as well. So you can find me over at Prepping with Sarge, and I'm on Instagram, and I'm on trying to get a little presence going on Facebook, and I'm on Twitter. But Twitter, I do half of my stuff is like prepping stuff, half of it is just me being goofing around with people and political commentary and ragging on politicians and stuff like that. So if that's not your thing, don't feel obligated to follow me over there. Um, and my mental health channel is called the Official Mental Health Matters channel, which is we talk about all kinds of different things in mental health. I don't upload there as much as I do for the prepping content, but I'm trying to get at least a couple of videos up a month there.
Nice, nice. And just to let everybody know, all of these links I'm going to be posting in the live, as well as you can find them in the description as well. So what we're going to be talking about, let me go ahead and read a little snippet from a article that I found. So hospitals and clinics in several states have began time-consuming processes from recovering from cyber attacks that disrupted their computer systems, which forced some emergency rooms to shut down and ambulances to be diverted. So this is not just happening in the United States, even though there has been a lot of states like Missouri, um and other states as well, but this actually is a bit global too. I've seen articles referencing hospitals in Australia actually dealing with these cyber attacks. And it's it's just kind of crazy how some of these cyber attacks have been affecting large scale places like like hospitals and such.
It is crazy. The hacker groups have figured out that there's big money in it. Some healthcare facilities have not been probably as diligent as they should be about cybersecurity. We're going to get into that a little bit. So they're probably considered soft targets. It's a crime where most of these people are never going to be caught, especially if it happens outside the United States or Europe. You're just not going to get some of these countries to bother to investigate it, and we don't have jurisdiction in some of these places, so nothing's going to happen. Um, in many cases, it's so there's low risk for these groups, high reward, and we're talking digital. We're talking like tens of millions, not like 15,000, 15,000, 500,000. We're talking tens of millions.
Right. Because like even like from one of the ransomware gangs is called Clop, CLOP. And they've stolen data from, at least from my research, they've stolen data from over 600 companies worldwide. and they're expected to make about 75 to $100 million from these attacks. So, I guess like one of the we're just gonna kind of jump right into kind of talking about this. If if you guys have any questions, go ahead and post them in the chat, and we will get to them. But question for you, Sarge. Hey there, Cold War Prepper.
Hey, Lee.
Um, what do you think are like one of the biggest security threats that are facing our healthcare organizations today?
So because patient information is supposed to, at least in the United States, I don't know, what it is for Europe or other countries. In the United States, it's like an extra level of protection that's supposed to be guaranteed for healthcare privacy. So specifically, we're talking about the Health Insurance Portability Act. Um, when a healthcare agency has a slip up, whether it be accidental or like a cyber attack or something like that, the consequences for those agencies can be huge, right? So, if, for example, if you were a patient of mine at my clinic and I slipped up and I accidentally allowed your private information to get out, the fines for me and my agency are significant. And I don't have the numbers here to give you exact quotes. I could tell you that they're enough to bankrupt companies, and they have. And repeated offenses is enough for a clinician or a doctor or a nurse to possibly lose their license, which is pretty much a career ender at that point. So
Oh,
the so
geez.
yeah, so the penalties are huge. What are the so you would think, given that most agencies would be taking this seriously, right? You would think that. Unfortunately, there's probably a lot of weak points in the fortresses. So what are some of the risks? Obviously, cyber attack is one of them, but I think probably even more common than that is just people screwing up and doing stuff that they shouldn't be doing, right? Talking about a patient in public, or with somebody that doesn't have a right to access to that information.
Right.
And there's a lot of ways that can go wrong. Then, of course, you've got the disgruntled employee problem, which all companies have, that where, like, you tick an employee off enough and they may say, well, I'm going to stick it to this agency,
Right.
and they're just going to open holes for everything to go, right? They can feed that information to the dark web. They can there's and they and that's can be There's ways to do that where that's hard to trace too, so you can get like malicious attacks from the inside. But what's the most common way, if you want to ask me? I think it's people opening clicks and links that they shouldn't be opening. That's the easiest way for them to get in.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Like, that's called what do you call it? That's called social engineering.
That's
And
right.
that's, like one of the huge, like it's probably the number one way that that these bad actors, that they get the information from the companies that they get the information from. Like it's not necessarily like how you see on movies and TV shows, or you have like a person with a black hoodie sitting at a computer, and you have
Right.
the whole matrix screen going on. No, it's more they just send out these sometimes they're really realistic looking emails that look like they're coming from some of these companies, and people click on them. They click
Yeah.
on them maybe because they don't know how, like, they might have been fooled, and they just click on them, and then their information gets stolen. Heather Stewart. Um
Hey,
so
Stuart.
like what kind of, because I know the like whole medical industry, they operate off of the HIPAA and all that kind of stuff. So like what kind of information are we talking about? Like, is it just names, addresses, social security numbers, like that kind of general information, or is
That
there
could
like a
Yeah,
lot
that
more?
oh, sure. That for sure, like general information about a person's identity. Every healthcare agency in the country probably is keeping some records on that, unless there's a specific reason to have non-identifying information, right? Like maybe there's like some kind of program that's like you can get there and you can get complete confidential services, but that would be pretty unusual and pretty rare. So everybody's going to have name, address, phone number. But then you start getting even more interesting than that, because you're going to have information like next of kin, right? So then, I've been talking a little bit on my channel about how uh, AI, you can now, this technology exists now for people who aren't aware of this. I know you are aware of it, but maybe not everybody is. They could go on there and they can, because you and I have hours and hours and hours of publicly available voice data, and they could very easily plug that in. Like, we're talking within minutes, this can be done. Plug that into an AI program and it can simulate my voice or your
Yeah.
voice.
Yeah.
And then, so how do you use that? So you could call their next to kin and you could say, hey, Mrs. Sarge, it's me, Sarge, and I'm in trouble, and I need you to send money here right now, or they're gonna kill me, right, or something like that. And it's gonna sound like me, or it's gonna sound like and that's available now, and that's like a new rising scam that's happening more and more. This is why I talked about code words on my video about city preparing, right? So like, Mrs. Sarge knows that if I ever am in distress, there's a certain word that I'm going to say, and that's really me. That's not somebody using my voice. And I would encourage anyone who has a large profile out there on social media to be thinking about stuff like that. And maybe you don't even need to have a large social media. Maybe it's just a good idea for all families to be thinking about that.
No, you're not wrong.
So
So,
then it gets even more interesting. But wait, there's more. So now, if you get beyond that and you get into protected health information, this is
mhm.
where this is where the gold mine is. This is where, and forget about the credit cards and stuff like that, because sure, if they have that on file, that's probably going to be accessible as well. But if you can get into somebody's protected health information, now you can, let's say that you are nefarious enough to, you want to find out all of the people who go to a certain clinic that are taking opiates,
Okay.
right? And you could sell that to a criminal enterprise that might target those houses, right? Because now they've got their address and they know what medications are going to be in the house, or benzodiazepines, or stimulants, all of which can be legally prescribed, but also can be abused on the street and have a very high street value. The sky's the limit with this stuff. It really is a gold mine if you're a bad person looking to make a quick buck. Um, and You could ransom information, of course, which is like where probably the biggest information is, right? So we contact the digital prepper health clinic and we say, we've got access to your entire database and we're going to prove it to you. Maybe we'll send you a couple little pictures to show you that we're inside, and you're going to give us $5 million, or we're going to sell all this information on the dark web, or we're going to shut down your system and everybody's going to lose their health records, or like there's all kinds of damage they could do.
Right. Because yeah, I've even been looking at there was this other uh like ransomware gang called Residia, and they've been also targeting healthcare organizations. This was actually the one that I mentioned that was targeting ones in Australia,
Mhm.
and they like like I'm looking at it now, like they send this whole little like email, like this is an automated alert from Residia and your digital ecosystem has been compromised. And I mean, even the FBI says not to pay ransoms, as there's no guarantee that they're just gonna go, oh, okay, you paid us, we're not gonna leak your information.
Right.
I mean, what's your opinion on that? Because I honestly don't think that these cybersecurity or ransomware gangs need to be paid. I mean, if they have the data, if they stole the data from one of these companies, then it's like, well, I mean, you kind of messed up. You got to learn from it, learn how, what attack vector they chose, and how they got into your system to take the information and learn from it.
Right.
But I see a lot of them. They like pay these ransoms. They're like millions of dollars,
Yeah.
and 3 months later, they still show up on the dark web. Hey
Right.
there, Bacon.
Yeah. Hey, Bacon. Hey, Broken Necks. Good to see you both. Yeah, I did read the same stuff you did, that the FBI generally recommends not to pay this stuff because it doesn't guarantee that they're going to turn it back on. And it doesn't guarantee that the information is not going to end up on the dark web anyways. And yet I see a lot of cybersecurity experts just kind of like, you're going to have to pay them, if you want your system turned back on, you're going to have to pay them. And so obviously that's happening, right? Or these attacks wouldn't continue to happen. It happens because it's profitable. Who says crime doesn't pay?
Right.
It definitely pays. And so people are getting their ransom money, and that's because that's happening. It's going to continue to happen. My understanding was, remember the attack on the grid, was that like a year and a half ago in like Virginia area? Or was it the railroad company?
Which one? I mean, there was a bunch. There was
Take your pick.
there were ones with the with the water treatment facilities.
That's
There
what it
was
was.
the Colonial Pipeline one. There was a bunch.
Yeah. Those were the two that I was thinking of. Sorry. The my understanding is that they got paid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I want to say that they have like a specific like insurance company or something like that that might foot the bill for for that. But I mean it just they get paid, and what happens? What happens to our like data? Well, I mean, like we talked about, it gets sold on the dark web, or it might just get leaked. And there's a bunch of bad actors that they peruse those forums, and they take that information to to scam us, obviously. So I mean, like,
Yeah.
I guess another kind of question is like, I don't know if like, what do these kind of what do these companies, what do these like medical healthcare facilities, what are they doing to make sure that our data is kind of as protected as possible?
So first of all, let me say that I've worked for a lot of different agencies. So I'm going to speak in generalities rather than giving specifics. Not going to name any particular software or anything
Yep.
like that for the
No worries.
purposes of protecting some trade secrets and things like that. Um, and my opinions are my own. They don't represent anybody that I've ever worked for or been affiliated with. So what they should be doing, now I can't say that all companies are doing this, but what they should be doing is there are certain precautions that you can take that make this a lot more difficult. Number one, you've talked about dual factor authentication and stuff like that. Well, a good healthcare company is doing multi-factor authentication, right? So to log into an electronic record, a good company should be making that user, right, whether it be a nurse, doctor, clinician, secretary, whatever, they should have to be going through multiple layers of passwords to even get to their information.
Hmm.
That's a good start. Having systems that shut down if they're not in use for a couple minutes because people walk away from their desk. And that's another way that data gets breached, right?
Yep.
Like, so people think, oh, I can leave my patient in this room for just a minute while I go get this thing off the printer or something like that. It only takes seconds for them to access data.
Yeah.
And so, you know, good practice would be, lock your computer when you walk away from your desk. I don't care, if the Pope himself is in there, lock your computer. But if in the absence of, humans make mistakes, and humans can get lazy and things like that. So a system that shuts itself into lock mode very quickly, it can be annoying. I mean, I have all day long. I'll be working on something, and then I turn away from the computer for just a couple minutes and I'm locked out, and I got to go all the way back through multiple layers.
Hmm.
So those are some pretty good things. Any emails in and out of the system should be encrypted, right? Does it make it difficult? Yep, it definitely does. It makes it a pain in the butt, but this is the world that we live in. And educate a good system. Some of the companies that I've worked for have really good IT programs that educate the employees on, because like, the average therapist doesn't know what social engineering is from a from a hacking standpoint. They wouldn't know unless their IT program educates them, like, this is what this is, and this is why you don't click on links that you don't know where they're from, and this is how to spot a suspicious email and things like that. We don't get, as a therapist, we don't get a ton of training on that kind of stuff. We should, but we don't.
So would you say that they that they also get those what do you call it, like those fake emails that get sent out, like the
That
test
happens.
emails?
Yeah, the testers, and a good company will constantly be monitoring for that stuff, and as soon as they detect something, get the word out to everybody in the agency, make sure that they're reading that email. That, like, hey, if you get an email from hi Vanessa Kitty, if you get an email from Vanessa Kitty, don't click on it, don't open it, notify IT immediately, right? So a good company will be on top of that. Now this all costs money, right? So the smaller the company, the harder it is to manage this. But some of these big hospital groups that we saw recently, like, they have to have, because we're talking about the most recent situation, where it's multiple hospitals, all
Yep.
part of the same ownership group. For something that large, they have to have a good IT program. There's no doubt in my mind that they had some good protocols. So I'd be curious where the failure point happened there. But yeah, educating your employees about that stuff, making them do trainings, and yeah, nobody likes to do a mandatory training that they did last year, but we have to refresh on this stuff. We have to know about it.
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, like Vanessa Kitty says, OPSEC is always critical. Operational security is always critical, especially like in these types of situations. I was reading one thing. I don't know if you heard about the one regarding IBM, where they it's like one of their programs or something was used for one of these healthcare facilities. And yeah this says for the 13th, so according to IBM's annual report on data breaches, for the 13th straight year it reported the most expensive breaches, averaging about $11 million each.
This was IBM.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's crazy numbers, right?
it's hard to fathom. Yeah.
$11 million each. Like, um, uh, I'm just looking through the chat here real quick. Yeah, Broken Neck. Broken Neck even says, at that point, I just tell him to leak the information, which actually kind of brings me to another question. I don't know if you've ever had to deal with like any type of data breaches or anything, but how would they communicate with the patients? Because I know there's a lot of patients that would need to be told that their information has been breached. I mean, do they call them? Do they just send them an email, or
Hmm.
you know?
So a couple things. So I've been fortunate where that I've never been part of an agency that had a wide scale breach.
That's good.
So, and I'm happy about that because it's a nightmare. When there's a small HIPAA breach, like, so an example may be, um, here's an example that could happen with human error. Let's say that you were one of my patients and Vanessa Kitty was one of my patients, and I needed to send you postal mail, and I needed to also send her postal mail. And I accidentally put the wrong letter in the wrong envelope, and you get one to her, and she gets one that's about you. That's
Hmm.
a HIPAA breach, right? So when that's discovered, and that stuff does happen because humans are prone to error. When
Right.
that stuff does happen, as soon as it happens, most agencies are going to have somebody who's in charge of that you immediately have to report that to.
Hmm.
And that may be like a QA person, quality assurance. It may be they may have a privacy officer or something like that. It's going to depend on what the agency calls that person, but it gets reported to them. And then there's most agencies should have a way to document that in that person's record as well, that there was a breach at this time, and this is where we believe this is the information we believe got out, and this is the information that it went to, and the patient was notified. And if you've ever gotten one of those letters that says, "Hey, we think we might have compromised your data. We're really sorry about that. Here's a free year of LifeLock." You know, like, oh, thanks. Somebody's now made a passport with my image and name and is probably a terrorist somewhere. But thanks for that LifeLock. That's awesome. Really
Right.
cool.
1 year.
Yeah, 1 year free LifeLock. And you can shut off your credit. Oh, thanks for inconveniencing me. So that person, the patient should be notified by the representative from the agency that handles all of that information. And then if there's any, if that person wants to, say, press charges or file legal matters, things like that, at that point, that it's going to be handled by the legal department and that kind of stuff. And me, as just somebody who delivers healthcare, I may not even be privy to what happens beyond that point.
Mhm. Now, I mean, in terms of legal, legal matters, like, what are we talking about? Are we just talking about maybe like fines, or uh, could they potentially be like shut down be over it, or what?
Yes, all of the above, starting at fines, all the way up to, depending on how serious the infraction was, all the way up to, the catastrophic fines that are going to cripple the agency and it's going to have to shut its doors. It's never going to recover, to individuals losing their license, all of which is possible. It kind of depends on the seriousness of it. Like, if I decided to screw you over and like go on and just tell the world about like all these private things that you told me
Mhm.
and your healthcare information, that's a pretty serious infraction, versus like an accidental, I let your name slip to Vanessa Kitty in a postal mail. And that's, it's not right. It's not okay, but it's not the same as like a malicious attempt to misuse your information.
That's fair. Speaking of which, Vanessa says, "What about VA personnel at VA headquarters in DC having laptops stolen from their vehicles with like 1 million veterans info on board?"
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
That's huge.
that's huge.
It's also a matter of national security, because we know that there's hit lists out there in the world on some of these veterans. That's really bad. Um, so that is a huge security risk as well. And in this era of now, we all want to work from home, agencies should be aware of that as well. And so there may be protocols. Again, I'm kind of speaking in generalities rather than specifics here, but there might be protocols that some companies will, if you're going to work from home, will reserve the right to inspect your workspace.
Hmm.
And you have to sign something that says that no other family member is going to be able to hear conversations that you have through telehealth. You're, not going to have other things running in the background, like, something that could record, for example, something like that.
Right.
Um, the actual physical equipment, the agencies are usually going to make sure that the employee understands that they're responsible for that, and no, you can't leave it on the front seat of your car if you stop for gas. You should be either carrying it on your person, or putting it in the trunk of your car, or some other way securing it to the best of your ability. Now, with that being said, if we go back to the first stuff that we talked about, if your agency is following good protocols, just because they get the laptop doesn't mean they get the data, right?
Hmm.
Because there's still ways to make it near impossible, not impossible, near impossible to get into the system, right? So, again, without getting into specifics of the security, like the data, if I have my work laptop with me, your data is not on there. I can access your data through there, if you understand what I'm saying,
Mm.
but your data is not on that hard drive.
Okay. Oh,
Okay,
okay.
so it offers a little bit of a layer of protection. Now, is that foolproof? No, because somebody might save something to their desktop, or there might be still some ways that they can access partial data, not a full medical record, but partial data.
Right. Are you kind of referring to like kind of the air gap technology type
Yes.
stuff?
Hmm.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
In which, I mean, yeah, I've done a video on air gap technology. I mean, that's probably one of the best ways to keep something secure. Yeah, I mean, the only way, like you said, that you would be able to take information from there is if you were physically there yourself, or if that person wasn't saving things onto that air gap drive. Um, so some
I'm sorry to hear that, Vanessa Kitty. I was just looking at her last comment.
I've been using VA MedCare since 1992. I've received numerous letters from VA stating such and such times my data went out unintentionally. Man, that sucks.
Yeah. Did they give you a free year of LifeLock? So here, let me sidebar on that for just a second.
No worries.
So as somebody who works in healthcare and who has a lot on the line when it comes to this stuff, I want to know why, if I compromise somebody's data accidentally, the consequences for me are huge. But if Citibank compromises my data, there's no consequence to it. Nothing will happen.
That's actually a great question.
I mean, the Supreme, our legislators should be doing something about that, and that would probably cut it down a lot if these like big banks suddenly had to be accountable for every time they've compromised your credit card data.
I 100% agree with the statement. But I think one of the what do you call it? I think one of the issues is that, like some of these credit card companies, what kind of information do they have? They have, your name, full name, your social security number, and then they have, like bank information. That's, maybe email address, phone number. Um, that's about it, right?
Well,
Like,
they would have all your purchases too, right?
uh I get yeah, I guess they would have, like purchase history, that kind of stuff. Uh, but I mean, like in terms of comparing um credit card company or bank company to healthcare company, I I would think that I think it's more because that healthcare company has like a bit more personal information.
Yeah,
But, I mean, you could argue the same with the, credit card company as well,
yeah,
because they do all the stuff nowadays with, you know, um, like firearms and stuff, with reporting that to law enforcement and all that kinda stuff.
right. Yeah, no, you're right. It's because of the HIPAA laws is why there's bigger consequences for healthcare.
Here, most days from the credit bureau firm with the most of their days stored in Buffalo, New York, had our data stolen from almost every creditee in their system. Yeah, see, and some of the stuff you don't even hear about, right?
Yeah.
Um, Yeah, I mean, I think this this particular topic, with the healthcare facilities, that has kind of made big news is just because of the scale of it, right?
Right.
Um, some stuff it might be pretty big in scale, like hundreds of thousands of people's information has been breached, but hundreds of thousands isn't necessarily what like as big as millions, tens of millions of people's data stolen.
Yeah.
I I actually I'm not 100% sure on this one. I want to say
Yeah.
he did.
I'm not sure either, but that does sound familiar. I'll
It
say
really
that.
I'm gonna have to look that up actually. um so I was also looking at some metrics here as well, like some statistics, and like I kind of want to read some and get your opinion on whether or not you kind of agree with that or not.
Mhm.
So like I guess they like interviewed a whole bunch of patients, and they say here from a potential patient perspective, nearly half of respondents said that they would change hospitals if they knew that their hospital had been hit with a ransomware attack, and 37% were concerned about hospitals using online portals for patient information.
Mhm.
What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, just it's another killer. I mean, that'll put a business out of business real quick. You
What do you
know.
think about like, because I know a lot of the like healthcare facilities are using online portals to send you like your medical information, after maybe you went to the doctor to go get checked up, and they send you that stuff through
Mhm.
basically email.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. So you can, again, without getting to specific program names and things like that,
Hmm.
you some agencies will, and actually, if you think about it, it's kind of a nice feature if like you can go on yourself and kind of get some partial access to your information and communicate with your doctor or your therapist. Tell them you need a medication refill, or like, you know, I'm having a headache since I started taking this medication, or anything like that. That's kind of a nice feature to be able to do that. Um, how secure are they? Well, if they're following some of those things that I said before about that, at least some of the information, the most critical information is encrypted at like multi stages of, you have to go through multiple passwords, and those passwords, here's the other key that I did mention, those passwords all expire at different times, and you can't use the same password again, and it has to be like a complicated password, right? So like, just as an example, if I have to get into a medical record that I have access to, I may have to go through 6 different passwords, all of which are changing frequently, and that gets hard for the person who's the medical provider how to manage that kind of information, right?
Right.
Because it's, that's a lot to remember. And especially when like it's not just, you can't use password as your password, it's got to be complicated.
Right.
um, so there, we've talked before about how there's different ways to make it mnemonic and easier to remember, but it's not uncommon for a healthcare provider to get locked out of their own system and have to go to IT and beg forgiveness. That happens quite a bit, actually. um, I think they're safer than the average person would think if the company's doing it right, but I do get the concerns.
Huh.
What do you,
That's
what
an
are your thoughts?
I mean, I'm not surprised that I'm honestly surprised that it's not more than half of respondents said that they would change hospitals. But at the same time, I mean, who's not having some sort of security breach these days?
Mhm.
And yeah, I mean, you like, if I were to have, a nickel for any time for any time a company had their data breached, I'd be rich. Um, but yeah, no, I agree with that. And what if 37% were concerned about hospitals using online portals for patient information? Um, I mean, with that, I I'm a big advocate of, like, kind of, pushing technology to where it needs to be, but at the same time, I mean, we need to, understand how that technology works, right?
Yeah.
So, like, for example, using online portals for patient information. I mean, as long as as long as the portals are, themselves, secure, and secure to the highest standard that they can be, um then yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily see an issue with it. But to be fair, the highest standard, there's still always that non-0% chance that something can happen.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's more of an information thing that you need to be aware of, right?
Yeah. Would you say that every time we use technology to make things a little bit more convenient or a little bit more efficient, that there's a risk that we're giving up security for that?
Yeah, yeah, yes, 100%.
Yeah.
Um, you know, because dependent on, I mean, before this, we'd get everything through either paper or mail.
Mhm.
And yeah, I mean, it's not impossible for someone else to get the wrong mail, by mail.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's there was less issues with it than now, where we have all this technology, and it's just data breach after data breach.
Yeah.
So no, I think from a convenient standpoint that technology does assist us with things being more convenient. But with that being said, you know, we have to be more aware of what information that we're putting into these databases. And
Yeah.
sometimes, like with healthcare facilities, sometimes there's not really that much that you can do. I know for some of them you can opt out of having, like emails sent to you, and you can have everything sent by mail. Um, which, I mean, if that's what you want to do, then go ahead.
Mhm. So I've been in my field for so long that I actually came in. So I started in my field in the 90s.
Hmm.
So, and it was still paper records at that time. So I came in at the end of the paper medical records and got to work in that kind of environment for a couple of years before the emergence of the electronic medical record. So I have a very interesting perspective on it. And when we started with paper records, the average caseload for a therapist was 30 patients, and that was considered, anything more than that was considered to be not really good, because you couldn't give good practice, you couldn't give good care.
Right.
With electronic medical records, we have more than doubled our ability to provide care. Um, so to put that in a different terms, the average caseload now for a clinician is over 60 patients.
Huh.
And because of the convenience, because of the how easy it is to get information, to store information, to exchange information with a doctor or a nurse, to get lab results and all of that stuff, it
Hmm.
really freed up time that could be put more towards patient care. Now, anybody who's listening to this right now is probably yelling at the screen saying, then why can't I get an appointment with my therapist? Right. And I'll speak to that. I'll speak to that. So we have doubled our capacity to what we can provide for direct contact with patients, which is fantastic. Um, why are you having a hard time getting access to your therapist, doctor, nurse? Is because the demand has gone up more than double. Okay.
Mm.
So more and more people have, and this is wonderful, but it's also created some new interesting problems. More and more people are wanting to get mental health help. More and more people are health conscious and going to their doctor more often. More and more people are aging, right? The boomer generation is aging and they have more health issues. The population, even though the population birth rate has slowed a little bit, the population continues to grow. So, do we have the same amount of therapists as we did in the 90s? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. But I know we don't have enough, and that's why you can't get access to your provider as quick as you would like to.
Hmm. So I mean, are you also, kind of saying that with the technological advancements, um, kind of making things more efficient, that you kind of get pushed with more patients, because of that efficiency. And with that, there's a little more, or I should say a little less of that like person to person connection, right?
Well, there is a break point where you can only do so much, right? We're not, we don't have robot therapists yet. That will eventually happen, but so humans can only do so much. I put in at my work a 40-hour work week, and then I have two other jobs that I do, and not that I have to do it financially, but I choose to do that for side hustle and financial preparedness. Um, so my within those 40 hours, obviously I don't see every single patient every single week, right?
Right.
So some patients are every other week. I have a few patients that are once a month. And so the capacity is going to vary, but there is a break point where you just can't keep taking patients endlessly and continue to provide good care at some point. And then you've got situations where a therapist, and I'm just using therapist, but you could use this with any medical profession. You could use it with occupational therapist, physical therapist, nursing, take your pick. It's all the math is going to work for any one of these. At some point, then my accessibility to my current caseload is going to be limited if I just keep, taking, right? So where is that? It's really going to vary. If you are working with a super high intense caseload of, say, people with schizophrenia, that's going to be, you might have to take less people.
Hmm.
The population that I'm currently working with, I could take 60 and everybody's going to get good care. I could not take 100. If I take 100, people aren't going to get callbacks, and I'm going to see people, once every 5 weeks, and it's not going to be good, and it's not going to be very therapeutic,
Hmm.
right? So there is a sweet spot in there, and it really is going to vary by the profession. It's going to vary by the type of caseload that the person has. But the ability to streamline processes that used to be all done manually, such as writing a note, literally writing out a note. That seems so long ago to me now, but literally writing out a note of what I did in therapy, I can type it much faster, right? It's all streamlined, and so
Right.
so that has improved our ability to get to more people, but we need more people to get to more people.
I see. And that's, let's see here. So let's kind of look at the I'm kind of looking over at the comments here.
So to answer your question, Cold War Prepper, he asked, what would that be, a weekly contact, bi-weekly, or if you had a 60 patient caseload? I see the majority of my people like every other week, and I have a few that I see once a month.
So real quick, because and this is going to be like a kind of a odd tangent, right?
Mhm.
But it does relate to what we're talking about. So in like hospitals and such, you have like HVAC systems, imaging machines, check-in kiosks, like stuff like that, right? Um, as far as are there any like are there any like uh policies or processes in place to keep those like areas protected from cybersecurity attacks?
That's a really good question. So I have not ever worked at a facility that uses those, but I've seen them.
Hmm.
Um, One concern that yeah, it needs to be in a public, it needs to be in an area where staff can monitor it, whether it be clerical or receptional staff, whatever. It definitely would need to be that, because you don't want people like installing a skimmer or putting like a little hidden camera there or something like that that could, watch people entering their information. um, I'm sure a creative person can think of ways around that, but I would caution people, if you're checking in through one of those like automatic kiosks, to just be aware of like who's over your shoulder, who's behind you, and try to place yourself in a way where you've got some privacy for that data pad or however you're entering, or get as close to it as you can so people can't see. Just like if you were using an ATM, good common sense is, don't, if there's a lot of people around, I'm not going to punch in my pin on my ATM. I'll wait till there's less people around, or I'll find a different ATM.
Right.
Right.
Because like so the article that I'm looking at, right? Um it says that there are about 430 million connected medical devices that are already, deployed worldwide, um that include things like pneumatic tubes, technologies used in HVAC systems, infusion pumps, and other things like that. And apparently, um, apparently, surveying like about 2,000 IT professionals, about 60% of the people of those people that responded, they are aware and they are concerned about the potential for data breaches leveraging these types of medical equipments. And so I'm I it's like you said, with the like card skimming from like cashiers and ATMs and such. But yeah, it's just it's crazy to kind of think about new forms of attacks.
Mhm.
And I mean, I know you probably have already heard of the stuff happening in airports, or potentially happening in airports with what do you call it, with the USB ports there. What they call it, like juice jacking. That's what they call it.
Hmm.
I think I
I
made a
have
video on that.
Yeah, I have heard about it. Is it similar to like how a skimmer works by they're basically putting an overlay over the USB?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's also, when you plug the USB in, like from your phone to that public USB port, instead of just charging your device, it's taking data from your phone, like downloading it onto whatever other server or wherever that information is going.
So so all right, so a workaround for that as a passenger would be, carry your own portable bank, power bank, which I do when I'm traveling anyways, and it's a good idea to do that. Um, you would think that the airport would periodically be checking all of that stuff, but I'm going to tell you that probably that's not happening. And the reason I say that is recently when I was flying, I decided to just park myself across from a water fountain to just kind of observe people. I like to do that. And you know how a lot of travel hacks will say, oh, bring an empty water bottle and fill it at the water fountain once you get past security, right?
Hmm.
Well, while I was watching that, I saw a child sneeze on it. I saw a person get into a coughing fit, basically over it, not cover their mouth or turn away or anything like that.
Hmm.
And I saw another little child like put their mouth on the thing that was spewing the water, not like above it, but like on it.
Ugh.
And in the process of the time that I was there, I did not see one airport personnel come over and clean it or anything like that. So I assume that that probably doesn't happen.
Hmm.
And so if they're not cleaning their water fountains, I can tell you they're not checking their USB ports either.
um, let's see. Cold War and Vanessa both had questions here. I'm not quite sure what this is. I'm not
I,
quite sure
I
what
don't either. I
Volt
don't know what
Typhoon
that
is.
is.
In Chinese made devices to include medical. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure about that. Um, then Vanessa says, what about hacking the Holter monitor you used to read heart signals for a month? Um, so I think so. It's not necessarily like hacking the particular device. It's more that those devices, because they're plugged in via like Ethernet LAN connection, because there's somewhere else that they're monitoring all of these, all of the information
Mhm.
that the devices are putting out. Those can be attack vectors for like bad actors to maybe plug in their computer and gain access to whatever information that they want to get access to.
Mm.
I think that's what like like the main issue is, because like being in the information technology sector, I know one of the things that we kind of do at our jobs, if we specifically build like sites that have the exact number of data jack ports that are needed, and they're always plugged in. It's always told not to plug in anything else, but at the same time, those jacks also are they're like programmed to only um to only work with like specific devices as well. uh those devices are now using the cellular phone system for transmitting info, etc.
Hmm. Like 5G.
I'm gonna assume as much. So is this like a device that you use that is it just like sending like heart signal information directly to like a healthcare provider or something like that? Because that's kind of what I'm getting out of it, but I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, that's outside of my lane for sure. Um, so just while we're waiting for Vanessa to do that, so there's all kinds of other ways that somebody could get into a medical record system too, right? So you think about like how small are some of these like security cameras, like spy cameras, right? That you can
Hmm.
get, they can get them to like the size of a pea, right?
Oh yeah.
So imagine while somebody's in the waiting room, or the page, not the waiting room, but the other waiting room, like when you go to see your doctor, first you have to get into the waiting room and then they take you back and you have to be in another waiting room. You know what I'm talking about? And usually in there's like a table and bandages and like, stuff that the doctor needs. But there are a lot of times the doctor's computers in there too. So you just imagine all it takes is a bad person to take one of those little tiny cameras, put it somewhere in the room that's going to have a direct view of the keyboard and the screen, and boom, they're going to be able to get in.
Hmm.
You know.
Oh, okay. Yeah, see, I okay, I understand now. Um, I wonder if that like if that's just a specific, just if that's just a device, then oh, but I wonder if there's like an app, like an application as well, because like some of the like glucose monitor devices, they have like a app that goes on your phone as well.
Mhm.
And I mean those those also have a decent amount of information that you can that you can put in there that if the developer of that application gets some sort of data breach, that's again, that's more information that is now lost.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah. I mean, it's in with some of the articles you sent me, they said it's basically always a cat and mouse game, right? It's always catching up with what's happening, what the latest trick is, what the latest way to get into a system is. It's the bad guys are always going to be at least a step ahead.
Yep. No, you're not wrong. So before we kind of like wind things down, one question I do want to ask is what kind of advice would you give to like other healthcare organizations about security, whether it be, like cybersecurity or just, like security in general? Like what are
Yeah.
your opinions on that?
Definitely don't cheap out on your IT department. You have to consider them a very important part of your system, and you need people who are going to understand not only the importance of having a secure system, but about educating those of us who don't understand these things very well on what the latest attack is and what to watch out for, and have training protocols so that your employees are learning about things like phishing and social engineering. And you should really, I know it's more of a pain in the butt, but you should have a multi-factor system and insist that any emails going out of your system are encrypted, and make sure your employees are signing off on things that say, yeah, I'm aware of these risks and I've been trained, and I'm not going to leave my laptop on the front seat of my car while I go grocery shopping, and you know do what you can to don't make it easy. I guess that's it, right? Like, so nothing's foolproof, nothing's guaranteed, but don't make it easy, so if you don't have a system that's making it so that your employees have to change their password every so many days, and that it's making sure that they're using complicated passwords, you're just making it easy for the bad guys to get in.
Yep. Yep. That's one thing that I try to mention on, a lot of my videos is that, you know, that like the following those types of security, um, just normal security protocols, that's not, to make your life harder. That's more to make the bad actors' lives harder to get into your data. So,
Yeah.
if your data is important to you, then just make sure that you're following all those steps. Um, yeah.
No. And oh, here's another big one, digital. We didn't even talk about this. healthcare this one's a pet peeve of mine. Healthcare organizations should be making sure that their employees are shredding the little bit of paper that we do have that has patient information, because there is still some of that stuff. You have to sign forms and things like that, and then it usually gets scanned in. That information should be shredded after it's scanned in. That cannot be thrown into the trash. And a lot of healthcare organizations have gotten themselves in trouble by being lazy about this,
Oh,
right?
really?
Oh yeah, this is because people will fish through trash too. Yeah. So shredding it isn't by hand. You have to have a professional shredding service that's turning it into like these tiny little, squares of like a 600 million piece puzzle that would be basically impossible to put together.
Yeah, I was gonna
Uh,
say, I'm like, don't they hire like a third party service for that? But
a good company will. A good company will.
yeah,
Yeah.
right. That's the rub right there. A good company will.
Yeah. But companies will cheap out on this stuff, and especially, if they're small, I get it that it's these things cost money, but getting sued is going to cost you a lot more money.
Yeah, you're not wrong. Sarge, do you have any like upcoming videos or anything upcoming that you want to share?
Oh, yeah. So looking over to my left, I have like four products that I owe reviews for. You and I were talking backstage. It's been a heck of a month. I've had a lot of personal things, good stuff, but personal things that I was handling. So a lot of stuff that I really I need to get done is just sitting there to my left. So yeah, I got some products I got to show people that I've you know taken from companies in exchange for showing them to the audience. Some cool stuff too. I don't want to get too spoilery on it, but that's what I got coming up. Fortunately, some of my other side stuff is in a breather space right now, so that is going to allow me to get some more stuff done.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. What about you? What you got going on?
So I also I have like one last thing from this company that they've given me a decent amount of stuff that I've reviewed. I have one more thing that I kind of owe them a review on. It's been like since January,
Ooh.
so yeah. And then as well as I got other videos coming up, but I kind of want to start uh trying to do maybe like a weekly like cybersecurity news roundup type thing. That'll probably be live, or might be another video that I put out every Friday. But
Very,
yeah,
very
I
cool.
think it'd make more sense live. But yeah, if you guys are interested in that, just keep an eye out. I'm gonna link Sarge's channel here again.
Yeah,
There it
and so
is.
thank you. And for those of you who are content creators there, I don't know if you heard Digital and I were talking about this pre live stream too. If you haven't been in YouTube Studio lately, and if you're not a content creator, YouTube Studio is like our software that we have like behind the scenes to load up videos and edit them, and you can do some things back there, and it gives you a lot of data and analytics and things like that. But there was a thing at the top of dashboard that I would recommend everybody go read. There's some changes coming to YouTube that you're not going to. One of the things you're not going to be able to do is put links in live chat anymore, unfortunately.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah.
That's a big thing. Links in live chat and links in YouTube Shorts. If you guys utilize those, that'll be ending soon.
Yeah. And they'll tell you why. Again, it has to do with cybersecurity stuff.
Yeah, which I mean that makes sense. You don't want either you or somebody else, whether it be like a moderator or just some random person. A lot of people just they don't allow links in live chats anyway or
Yeah.
in their comments, but it's just good to know.
This is why we can't have nice things.
Yep. But if there's not any more questions, yeah, this was a great discussion, Sarge.
I
Appreciate you
appreciate
coming
it.
on.
Yeah, I appreciate you. I always have fun collaborating with you anytime, anytime.
So if you guys like the live, and want to see any more like this, go ahead and visit the channel. And feel free to leave a comment below when this live ends. And hit the like button. All that stuff helps with the YouTube algorithm. Yeah, so that's about it. Stay safe and stay prepared, guys.
Thanks, everybody.